Ladies and gentlemen, life is a battleground, and whether you recognize it or not, you're engaged in a war against chaos, against suffering, against the limitations that keep you from becoming who you could be. And let me tell you, the battle isn't out there in the world. It starts within you. You see, we have this incredible capacity for order and discipline, for meaning and strength, but most people squander it. They drift through life reacting instead of acting, blaming instead of building, waiting instead of willing. But here's the truth. If you don't master your mind, your thoughts will enslave you. If you don't command your body, it will betray you. And if you don't nourish your soul, you will feel lost, no matter how much you achieve. So tonight, we're going to talk about responsibility. Radical responsibility. We're going to talk about forging yourself into something formidable by aligning your mind, body, and soul in a way that gives your life purpose, structure, and direction. Because when you do that, when you truly take ownership of yourself, you become unshakable. Unshakable. Now let's get to work. The mind is both a weapon and a battleground. It is the lens through which you perceive reality, the filter that determines whether you experience life as an opportunity or as a burden. If you do not take control of your mind, the external forces will. Your thoughts will drift, shaped by circumstances, by other people's opinions, and by unconscious patterns that have been reinforced over years of unexamined existence. If you allow your mind to remain unstructured, it will work against you rather than for you. You will be enslaved by your impulses, overwhelmed by anxiety, and paralyzed by doubt. The first step toward fixing your life is to bring order to your mind, to take responsibility for your thoughts, and to become aware of the patterns that govern your behavior. Most people operate in a passive state of mental chaos. They react rather than act, allowing their emotions to dictate their decisions. They move through life in a fog, never questioning why they think the way they do, why they feel trapped in cycles of negativity, or why they struggle to stay motivated. This happens because they have never trained themselves to master their own minds. Instead of consciously directing their thoughts, they allow old fears, past experiences, and external influences to dictate their reality. The result is confusion, frustration, and stagnation. The mind, when left unchecked, is like an untrained animal. It follows its impulses, seeks immediate gratification, and resists discipline. But just as an untamed horse can be broken in and trained for a purpose, the mind can be conditioned to serve you rather than sabotage you. The first step in mastering your mind is to develop awareness. You must observe your thoughts as they arise and recognize the patterns that shape them. Most people do not realize that their internal dialogue is filled with self-doubt, criticism, and limiting beliefs. They absorb negativity from their environment, from their past, and from their fears about the future. These thoughts shape their reality because what you focus on expands. If your mind is filled with fear, you will find reasons to be afraid. If it is filled with anger, you will see enemies everywhere. But if you consciously train yourself to focus on clarity, purpose, and growth, your mind will begin to work in your favor. One of the most effective ways to gain control over your mind is to impose structure on it. This means having clear goals, clear values, and clear priorities. The mind craves order, and when it lacks direction, it falls into chaos. Structure does not mean rigidity. It means having a framework that keeps you focused and disciplined. When your mind is structured, you are less likely to be swayed by distractions, emotions, or external pressures. You develop resilience because you have a clear vision of what you are working toward. You no longer drift aimlessly, reacting to whatever happens around you. Instead, you take deliberate action, shaping your thoughts in alignment with your purpose. Discipline is the key to mastering the mind. Just as the body requires consistent training to become strong, the mind requires consistent effort to remain sharp and focused. This means challenging yourself intellectually, exposing yourself to new ideas, and pushing through discomfort when facing difficult tasks. It means eliminating distractions that weaken your mental focus, such as mindless entertainment, negative influences, and self-destructive habits. It means learning how to think critically, how to question assumptions, and how to navigate complex problems without becoming overwhelmed. The disciplined mind does not succumb to laziness, procrastination, or emotional volatility. It remains steady, capable of making rational decisions even under pressure. When the mind is undisciplined, it is easily hijacked by emotions, anger, fear, frustration, and doubt. People who lack control over their thoughts are constantly at the mercy of their feeling, reacting impulsively rather than responding strategically. Emotional mastery does not mean suppressing emotions. It means understanding them, recognizing their source, and choosing how to respond. The ability to remain calm in the face of adversity, to think clearly, even in moments of stress, is a sign of true mental strength. This level of control is not achieved overnight. It is developed through consistent self-reflection, through learning to detach from immediate emotional impulses, and through training the mind to prioritize long-term thinking over short-term gratification. The process of mastering your mind also requires you to confront the lies you tell yourself. People construct narratives that justify their weaknesses, that rationalize their failure, and that keep them trapped in mediocrity. They tell themselves that they are not smart enough, not capable enough, or not lucky enough to achieve what they desire. These self-imposed limitations are often inherited from past experiences, from societal conditioning, or from a fear of failure. But if you examine these beliefs critically, you will realize that most of them are not rooted in reality. They are stories that your mind has accepted as truth simply because they have been repeated often enough. Once you identify these false narratives, you can begin to rewrite them, replacing them with beliefs that empower you rather than limit you. Your mind is an incredibly powerful tool, but only if you learn to wield it with precision and intent. If left undisciplined, it will lead you down a path of confusion, regret, and missed opportunities. But if you train it, if you take control of your thoughts, impose order, and cultivate discipline, you will gain an unparalleled advantage in life. You will become the kind of person who can navigate challenges with confidence, who can think independently rather than follow the herd, and who can create a future that is not dictated by past failures or present fears. The body is the vessel through which we experience the world. It is the foundation of strength, resilience, and vitality, yet many people neglect it, treating it as an afterthought rather than the powerful instrument it can be. A weak body leads to a weak mind, and a weak mind leads to a weak life. When the body is not disciplined, it becomes a source of limitation rather than a source of power. People who do not take care of their physical condition find themselves constantly struggling with fatigue, illness, and a lack of energy, all of which negatively impact their ability to think clearly, make good decisions, and pursue meaningful goals. If the body is undisciplined, the mind will follow, because physical weakness breeds mental weakness. Strength, endurance, and discipline in the body are not just about appearance or fitness. They are about developing the capacity to endure hardship, to move with purpose, and to take control over one's own existence. Modern society has created a dangerous disconnect between people and their own bodies. Many live in a constant state of physical deterioration, unaware of how much their poor habits are holding them back. They eat without thinking, move without intention, and avoid physical challenges whenever possible. They have lost the ability to push themselves, to endure discomfort, and to use their bodies as they were meant to be used. The human body is designed for movement, for action, for resilience. It thrives under stress, grows stronger through struggle, and adapts to challenges. But when it is deprived of these things, when it is allowed to stagnate, it becomes a source of suffering rather than strength. A neglected body leads to sluggishness, pain, and an inability to handle the physical demands of life. It becomes a burden rather than an asset. Disciplining the body requires effort, and effort is something most people try to avoid. They seek comfort, they avoid pain, and they take the easy path whenever possible. But the truth is that discipline is the gateway to freedom. A body that is trained and strengthened through consistent effort does not break down under pressure. It does not falter in times of stress. It carries its owner through life with confidence, capability, and endurance. Physical discipline is not about vanity or superficial success. It is about creating a body that is capable of doing what is required, of rising to challenges, of supporting a sharp and focused mind. When the body is strong, energy levels are higher, mood is more stable, and mental clarity improves. There is a direct link between physical well-being and mental resilience, and those who ignore this fact set themselves up for failure. The way a person treats their body is a reflection of their mindset. Those who are careless with their physical health are often careless in other areas of life as well. They lack discipline in their thinking, in their habits, in their ability to delay gratification. They make excuses, avoiding responsibility for their condition. They blame genetics, circumstances, or bad luck, rather than taking ownership of their actions. But just as the mind can be trained to think critically and rationally, the body can be trained to move with power, to endure strain, and to overcome obstacles. The process requires consistency, pushing beyond comfort and embracing discomfort as a necessary part of growth. The body, like the mind, adapts to the demands placed upon it. If those demands are weak, the body will be weak. If they are strong, the body will become strong in response. Physical discipline is built through action, not theory. No amount of reading, planning, or hoping will create strength. So, strength is forged through repetition, through effort, through the willingness to do what is difficult. Training the body is not just about lifting weights or running long distances. It is about developing a relationship with effort itself. It is about proving every day that you are willing to endure discomfort in order to become something more. It is about setting a standard for yourself, refusing to accept mediocrity, and understanding that the process of becoming physically capable is inseparable from the process of becoming mentally strong. A person who has never tested their physical limits has never truly understood the depth of their own potential. They have never felt what it means to push through exhaustion, to fight against resistance, to conquer the voice that tells them to stop. They have never known the satisfaction of seeing their body transform as a result of their own dedication. When a person disciplines their body, they gain a sense of control that extends into every other area of life. They become more confident, more assertive, more capable of handling stress. They no longer shrink in the face of hardship because they have conditioned themselves to endure. They move through the world with a sense of power, knowing that they are not fragile, that they are not victims of their own physicality. They take command over their posture, their movements, and their presence. They do not slouch through life, weighed down by lethargy and weakness. They stand tall, knowing that they are capable of handling whatever comes their way. Neglecting the body leads to dependency. Those who do not take care of themselves become reliant on others, on medication, on external solutions for problems that could have been prevented through discipline. They spend their lives avoiding effort, only to find that their lack of effort has trapped them in a cycle of weakness and decline, day decline. On the other hand, those who take control of their physical condition experience life differently. They move with ease, they face challenges with confidence, and they approach each day with the energy and strength required to make the most of it. The soul is the core of human existence, the part of us that seeks meaning, connection, and truth. It is not just a vague spiritual concept, but an integral aspect of what makes a person whole. A neglected soul leads to a life of emptiness, where achievements feel hollow, relationships lack depth, and daily existence becomes a cycle of meaningless repetition. People try to fill this void with distractions, material success, social validation, and temporary pleasures. But none of these can substitute for the deep fulfillment that comes from nourishing the soul. When the soul is ignored, life becomes shallow and a person drifts without a sense of purpose or direction. Modern society encourages a purely external focus. It promotes the idea that happiness is found through career success, wealth, or social status, but these things, while valuable in certain contexts, cannot provide true fulfillment on their own. They are surface-level achievements that fail to address the deeper need for meaning. Without meaning, a person can have everything, money, status, relationships, and still feel a profound sense of dissatisfaction. The hunger for something greater remains because the soul is not being nurtured. True fulfillment requires aligning oneself with deeper values, pursuing truth, and engaging in activities that resonate with something beyond material success. It requires asking fundamental questions. What do I stand for? What am I contributing? What is my purpose? One of the primary ways to nourish the soul is through the pursuit of truth. Truth is not always comfortable, but it is necessary. Many people live in self-deception, avoiding difficult realities because they are painful or inconvenient. They construct narratives that justify their weaknesses, rationalize their failures, and protect their egos. But this avoidance comes at a cost. It creates an inner conflict, a disconnect between what is real and what is convenient to believe. When a person commits to seeking truth about themselves, about the world, about their beliefs, they develop a stronger sense of self. They become more grounded, more resilient, and more capable of facing life with clarity and purpose. Truth-seeking requires humility. It demands the willingness to admit ignorance, to challenge assumptions, and to accept that long-held beliefs may be flawed. Many people resist this because it threatens their identity. They cling to comforting illusions rather than confront the difficult process of growth. But real strength comes from the ability to look at reality as it is, without distortion. This process deepens the soul as it aligns a person with what is real rather than what is easy. It allows them to build a life based on authenticity rather than delusion. Another essential component of nourishing the soul is responsibility. People often think of responsibility as a burden, but in reality, it is what gives life depth and significance. Taking responsibility means acknowledging that life is not just about personal gain, but about contributing to something greater. It means recognizing that the choices made each day shape not only individual destiny, but also the world around us. When people avoid responsibility, they feel lost because they lack a sense of purpose. They drift, waiting for something external to give their lives meaning, rather than taking action to create it themselves. Responsibility forces a person to grow, to develop strength, and to become someone capable of making a real impact. It is through responsibility that a person builds character, earns respect, and finds true fulfillment. A soul that is neglected becomes weak. Just as an undisciplined mind or body becomes weak, it becomes vulnerable to external influences, easily swayed by trends, opinions, and superficial desires. Without a strong foundation, a person becomes reactive rather than proactive, chasing temporary pleasures without considering long-term consequences. They seek validation from others rather than developing an internal sense of worth. They become disconnected from what truly matters, lost in a sea of distractions and meaningless pursuits. But when the soul is nourished, a person becomes centered. They develop a clear sense of values, a strong moral compass, and an ability to withstand challenges without losing themselves. One of the greatest ways to strengthen the soul is through struggle. Struggle is often seen as something to be avoided, but in reality, it is through hardship that the deepest growth occurs. When people face adversity, they are forced to confront their limitations, to develop resilience, and to find strength they did not know they had. Those who avoid struggle remain stagnant, while those who embrace it emerge stronger, wiser, and more capable. Struggle shapes character, builds endurance, and refines the soul. It forces a person to dig deep, to find meaning in suffering, and to rise above their circumstances rather than be defeated by them. Connection is also vital for the soul. Humans are not meant to exist in isolation. They thrive on meaningful relationships, on deep conversations, on shared experiences that go beyond surface level interactions. Many people surround themselves with others yet still feel alone because their connections lack depth. They engage in shallow conversations, keep their true thoughts hidden, and fear vulnerability. But real connection requires authenticity. It requires the willingness to be open, to listen, to understand, and to build relationships based on trust and mutual respect. When a person invests in meaningful relationships, they strengthen their soul by fostering a sense of belonging, love, and shared purpose. Spiritual practice, in whatever form it takes, is another way to nourish the soul. This does not necessarily mean religion, though for many faith provides a strong foundation. It can also mean meditation, contemplation, gratitude, or any practice that deepens the connection to something greater than oneself. Engaging in activities that bring inner peace and reflection allows a person to cultivate wisdom, patience, and a sense of balance. It creates space for clarity, for understanding, and for developing a perspective that is not solely focused on material concerns. A strong soul is one that is connected to something beyond itself, one that recognizes the importance of both individual growth and collective well-being. Taking responsibility is the foundation of a meaningful and successful life. It is the recognition that you are the primary force shaping your own existence, that your actions, decisions, and mindset determine the trajectory of your life. Many people spend their time blaming external circumstances, other people, or bad luck for their problems. They believe that life is something that happens to them rather than something they have control over. This mindset is not only disempowering, but also deeply destructive. The moment a person refuses to take responsibility, they surrender their ability to change their situation. They become passive, reactive, and dependent on forces outside themselves. Responsibility is not just about accepting blame when things go wrong. It is about actively taking charge of your own growth, choices, and future. Avoiding responsibility leads to stagnation. It creates a cycle of excuse-making where every failure is attributed to something external rather than an opportunity for self-improvement. People who refuse to take responsibility often live in a constant state of frustration because they feel powerless. They wait for circumstances to improve, for others to change, or for the perfect opportunity to come along, never realizing that the power to improve their lives has always been in their own hands. Taking responsibility means rejecting this passive approach and embracing the reality that while not everything is within your control, how you respond to life always is. One of the most challenging aspects of responsibility is acknowledging uncomfortable truths. It is far easier to blame external factors than to confront personal weaknesses. Admitting that your failures are largely due to your own choices requires humility and strength. It requires looking at yourself honestly and recognizing where you have fallen short, where you have been lazy, where you have avoided difficult but necessary actions. This process is painful, but it is the only way to grow. When you take full responsibility, you shift your focus from what cannot be changed to what can. You stop fixating on unfairness, setbacks, and obstacles, and instead begin to ask, what can I do to improve this situation? This shift in perspective is what separates those who succeed from those who remain stuck in cycles of frustration and regret. Responsibility also means refusing to see yourself as a victim. Modern culture often glorifies victimhood, encouraging people to define themselves by their struggles and disadvantages. While acknowledging past hardships is important, allowing them to dictate your future is a form of self-sabotage. People who embrace a victim mentality believe that they are owed something by the world, that their suffering justifies inaction, and that they should be rescued rather than take control of their own lives. This mindset is seductive because it absolves people of the burden of effort, but in reality, it leads only to dependence and despair. True strength comes from recognizing that, regardless of what has happened in the past, you are responsible for shaping your future. Taking responsibility requires discipline. It means developing the ability to delay gratification, to set goals, and to follow through on commitments. Many people fail not because they lack talent or intelligence, but because they lack discipline. They allow short-term desires to override long-term objectives. They procrastinate, make excuses, and avoid discomfort, all while wondering why their lives do not improve. Responsibility demands that you do what is necessary, not just what is convenient. It means showing up every day, putting in the work, and holding yourself to a high standard, even when no one is watching. It is about refusing to take shortcuts, refusing to blame others, and refusing to settle for mediocrity. A responsible person does not dwell on problems. They focus on solutions. They do not waste time complaining about what is unfair. They find ways to adapt and overcome. They do not wait for motivation to strike. They cultivate discipline and take action even when they do not feel like it. This mindset creates resilience, the ability to face setbacks without being defeated by them. Life is unpredictable and adversity is inevitable, but those who take responsibility are not easily shaken. They understand that challenges are opportunities for growth, that hardship is a test of character, and that success is earned, not given. Personal responsibility extends beyond individual success. It also includes how you contribute to others and to society. Many people expect the world to improve without taking any action themselves. They criticize, complain, and demand change while doing nothing to create it. A responsible person understands that improvement starts with the individual. If you want a better community, be a better member of it. If you want stronger relationships, take the initiative to strengthen them. If you want to make a difference, start by setting an example. The world is shaped by those who take action, not by those who merely talk about what should be done. Responsibility is about recognizing that your actions matter, that your influence extends beyond yourself, and that by improving your own life, you also contribute to the betterment of those around you. A lack of responsibility leads to a lack of self-respect. When you avoid responsibility, you reinforce the idea that you are not capable, that you are not strong enough, that you need others to carry you. This erodes confidence and leads to a sense of helplessness. But when you take full responsibility for your life, you gain self-respect. You develop the confidence that comes from knowing you are in control, that you are capable of handling challenges, and that your choices shape your reality. Responsibility is the foundation of personal strength because it forces you to confront your weaknesses, to develop discipline, and to build a life based on action rather than excuses. Mastering self-discipline is one of the most powerful things a person can do to take control of their life. It is the ability to do what is necessary, even when it is difficult, even when motivation is absent, and even when the temptation to take the easier path is overwhelming. Self-discipline is the difference between those who succeed and those who fail, between those who build something meaningful and those who waste their potential. It is the foundation of progress in every area of life: physical health, mental clarity, emotional stability, and professional achievement. Without it, nothing great is possible. Many people believe they lack discipline because they are not naturally motivated, but this is a misunderstanding of what discipline truly is. Discipline is not about feeling like doing something. It is about doing it regardless of how you feel. And motivation comes and goes. It is unreliable, fleeting, and inconsistent. People who rely on motivation to get things done will always struggle, because there will be days when motivation is absent, when the mind resists effort, and when comfort seems far more appealing than work. Well, so discipline, on the other hand, is consistent. It is a system, a habit, a commitment to action that does not waver based on emotional states. Those who master discipline do not ask themselves whether they feel like doing something. They simply do it because it needs to be done. Self-discipline is built through small, consistent actions. It is not something a person either has or does not have. It is developed through repetition, just like any skill. Many people set enormous goals for themselves and then become overwhelmed by the magnitude of the task. They expect immediate results, and when they do not see them, they give up. The disciplined individual, however, understands that progress is made one step at a time. They do not wait for the perfect conditions to start. They do not rely on inspiration or ideal circumstances. They simply begin and they continue day after day, even when the results are not immediately visible. Over time, these small actions accumulate into significant achievements. The ability to delay gratification is at the core of self-discipline. Most failures in life are the result of choosing short-term pleasure over long-term success. People indulge in unhealthy food rather than maintaining a disciplined diet. They procrastinate rather than putting in the necessary work. They seek immediate comfort rather than enduring temporary discomfort for future rewards. This pattern of behavior leads to a life of frustration because the small pleasures gained in the moment ultimately result in greater suffering later. The disciplined person, however, understands that sacrifice is necessary. They recognize that saying no to temporary indulgence means saying yes to something greater in the future. They do not allow fleeting emotions to dictate their actions. Instead, they make decisions based on principles, goals, and long-term vision. The mind is the greatest obstacle to discipline. It resists effort, it seeks comfort, and it constantly presents excuses. It tells you that you can start tomorrow, that skipping one day does not matter, that you are too tired, too busy, or not ready. The disciplined individual learns to override these thoughts. They understand that their mind will always try to steer them toward the path of least resistance, but they refuse to listen. They train themselves to take action despite internal resistance. They develop the ability to push through discomfort, to silence the voice of weakness, and to stay committed even when their mind is working against them. One of the most effective ways to strengthen discipline is through routine. A structured daily routine removes the need for constant decision-making. When something becomes a habit, it no longer requires willpower. It becomes automatic. People who struggle with discipline often make the mistake of leaving too much room for negotiation in their daily lives. They tell themselves they will work out if they have time, or they will focus on their goals when they feel like it. This lack of structure leads to inconsistency and failure. The disciplined person eliminates uncertainty by creating a strict routine. They set specific times for their tasks, and they treat them as non-negotiable. They do not leave room for debate or hesitation. They know what needs to be done, and they do it. Discipline is also about accountability. Many people fail to stay consistent because they have no one holding them responsible for their actions. They make promises to themselves and then break them without consequence. The disciplined individual, however, understands the power of accountability. They set clear goals, track their progress, and ensure that they are answerable for their actions. Sometimes this means having a mentor, a coach, or a trusted person to provide external accountability. Other times it means developing a strong internal sense of responsibility, holding oneself to a high standard and refusing to accept excuses. A key is to make failure to follow through feel unacceptable. The ability to embrace discomfort is what separates those who are disciplined from those who are not. Discipline is uncomfortable by nature. It requires effort, sacrifice, and persistence. Most people avoid discomfort, choosing the easier, softer way at every turn. But growth only happens outside of comfort. The disciplined individual does not shy away from hard things. They seek them out. They understand that struggle is not something to be avoided, but something to be embraced. They deliberately put themselves in situations that challenge them. knowing that every moment of discomfort is an opportunity to build strength. A lack of discipline leads to a lack of confidence. When people consistently break promises to themselves, they lose trust in their own abilities. They begin to see themselves as unreliable, weak, and incapable of change. But when a person commits to discipline, they develop self-respect. They prove to themselves that they are in control of their actions, that they can withstand hardship, and that they have the power to shape their own lives. Every disciplined action, no matter how small, reinforces a stronger identity. It builds the belief that they are capable of achieving their goal. The power of habit shapes every aspect of life, determining success, failure, happiness, and suffering. People often believe their lives are dictated by big decisions, but in reality, it is the small, repeated actions performed every day that shape their future. Habits, whether good or bad, accumulate over time, leading either to progress or stagnation. Those who understand this principle take control of their habits, consciously shaping them to serve their goals rather than allowing destructive routines to control them. Key to transforming any aspect of life is to master the daily habits that define it. Most people underestimate the impact of their daily behaviors. They assume that skipping a workout, wasting time on distractions, or indulging in unhealthy food just once does not matter. But habits are not formed in a single moment. They develop through repeated actions. A single missed workout may not make a difference, but the habit of skipping workouts leads to weakness and decline. Eating unhealthy food once is insignificant, but a repeated pattern leads to poor health. The same principle applies to positive habits. Reading for 10 minutes a day may seem small, but over time, it builds knowledge and sharpens the mind. Practicing a skill consistently may feel slow, but it leads to mastery. Success is not the result of dramatic one-time efforts, but of simple actions performed consistently over time. The brain is wired to follow patterns. Once an action is repeated enough times, it becomes automatic, requiring little conscious effort. This is why habits are so powerful. They shape behavior without the need for constant decision-making. However, this also means that bad habits are just as easily formed as good ones. Many people find themselves trapped in cycles of destructive behavior without realizing how they got there. They waste hours on distractions, procrastinate on important work, or engage in unhealthy habits because these behaviors have become automatic. The key to breaking free from this cycle is to become aware of habits, identify the ones that are holding them back, and replace them with better ones. Breaking a bad habit is difficult because the brain has already been conditioned to follow a certain pattern. Simply deciding to stop a habit is rarely effective because the mind resists change. The most effective way to eliminate a bad habit is to replace it with a better one. If someone has a habit of wasting time on social media, they can replace it with a habit of reading or learning. If they tend to eat unhealthy food when stressed, they can develop the habit of exercising or meditating instead. Key is to create an alternative behavior that satisfies the same need without the negative consequences. Another crucial aspect of habit formation is environment. The surroundings people place themselves in either support or sabotage their habits. A person who wants to focus on deep work but surrounds themselves with distractions will struggle to build the habit of concentration. Someone who wants to eat healthily but keeps junk food within reach will constantly fight against temptation. Changing the environment to support desired habits makes them easier to maintain. This means removing triggers for bad habits and making good habits as effortless as possible. For example, setting up a designated workspace free of distractions encourages productivity. Preparing healthy meals in advance reduces the temptation to make unhealthy choices. Designing an environment that supports goals eliminates unnecessary resistance and makes success more likely. Small habits compound over time. People often assume that significant change requires drastic action, but the truth is that small, consistent improvements lead to the most profound results. This is the principle of compound growth. Tiny gains accumulate and eventually create massive transformations. A person who improves by just 1% every day will see enormous progress over time. The key is patience and persistence. Many people give up on building habits because they do not see immediate results. They expect transformation overnight and become frustrated when it does not happen. But true success is built through long-term consistency. The effects of good habits may not be visible right away, but they are always working beneath the surface, gradually leading to improvement. One of the most powerful ways to strengthen habits is through identity. People act in alignment with who they believe they are. If someone sees themselves as a disciplined person, they will naturally behave in disciplined ways. If they believe they are lazy, they will reinforce that identity through their actions. This is why shifting identity is crucial for habit formation. Instead of focusing on external results, people should focus on becoming the kind of person who naturally exhibits the behaviors they want to adopt. Rather than saying, I need to go to the gym, they should say, I am the kind of person who never misses a workout. Rather than saying, I need to be more productive, they should say, I am a person who values deep work and focus. When a habit is tied to identity, it becomes much easier to maintain because it is no longer just an action. It is a reflection of who they are. Accountability plays a crucial role in building strong habits. When people keep their goals to themselves, it is easy to make excuses and fall back into old patterns. However, when they make their commitments public or involve others in their process, they create a level of accountability that makes failure more difficult. This can be achieved by joining a group of like-minded individuals, finding a mentor, or simply sharing progress with a trusted friend. The fear of disappointing others or breaking a commitment to someone else can be a powerful motivator to stay consistent. Tracking progress is another effective way to reinforce habits. When people measure their actions, they become more aware of their behavior and are more likely to stay committed. Keeping a habit tracker, writing in a journal, or setting up a reward system helps reinforce consistency. The act of seeing progress, even if small, provides motivation to keep going. Many people underestimate the psychological impact of visible progress. Something as simple as crossing off completed tasks on a checklist can create a sense of accomplishment and drive further action. The key to lasting change is to make habits effortless. This does not mean they will be easy, but they should be designed in a way that minimizes resistance. The fewer obstacles between a person and the habit they want to build, the more likely they are to follow through. This means starting small, setting goals that are so easy they are impossible to ignore. Instead of aiming to exercise for an hour every day, start with 5 minutes. Instead of committing to reading a book a week, start with 1 page a day. Once the habit is established, it can be expanded over time. The biggest mistake people make is trying to do too much at once, getting overwhelmed and giving up. But by starting small and focusing on consistency, even the most difficult habits can become second nature.